God.
Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to our second episode of IgG4-RD Live. We are your co-hosts, Alex and Masta, and we are patients and advocates of our IgG4 related diseases. And with that,
Yeah, hi everyone. Hi, and thank you, Masa. Thank you all for those of you tuning in and for those of you who are here for the first time. This is a one-of-its-kind platform where we, the patients, will amplify our IgG4-RD patient voices. We'll discuss our day-to-day lives, successes, and struggles both. We'll provide information, research, ongoing and upcoming trials, resources, and more. Today, we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves and why we're doing this, and then talk about something called spoon theory.
that's right, Alex. Thank you. So everybody be sure to follow and like us on our socials, and that way you'll be updated with the latest of everything that Alex just mentioned. And, we didn't get to discuss our journeys the last time. So we wanted to go ahead and tell you all about it and get into why we're really doing what we're doing. So I'll bring it back to Alex and let her go over her crazy whirlwind of a journey to diagnosis and with this disease. And then from there, we'll take it up again with me.
Thank you, Masa. Thank you. So first, I just wanted to clarify one thing, and that is my name is Alex Stretchen, and the way to pronounce my name is to think of the first thing you do in the morning, and that's, other than yawn, is probably going to be stretch. Yes, and that is how you say my name, Stretchen, Alex Stretchen, because I know there's a lot of confusion around that. And we want to share our stories so you can see how vastly different each person's experience is. And I think between me and Masa, you will really see the difference. And that's with our IgG4 related disease, which is IgG4-RD. And this is a rare condition that is as complex as its name. And my adventure began in the summer of 2018. And there was this mysterious growth on the top right side of my skull. And that led to a diagnosis by biopsy in December. And I'm also seronegative, which means I don't have elevated levels of IgG4 in my blood. But biopsy is the gold standard for a definitive diagnosis. And this early diagnosis was life-saving. And at the onset of my noticeable symptom, that lump on my head, I underwent different diagnostic tests. We started by ruling out scalp issues. Did I bump my head? No. Was it a spider bite? Again, no. An ingrown hair? No. A cyst? No. So I was referred to a scalp surgeon to biopsy the lump. And she needed an ultrasound prior to the biopsy. And it was at that point that they noticed that there was some penetration into my cranial cavity. So I was referred to a neurosurgeon to biopsy my skull, and he needed an MRI to perform the biopsy because the skull's pretty thin at that point, probably anywhere, I don't know. But I thought it was because of the thinness. And when I showed up in the early morning to get that biopsy, I was told that I was going into surgery for a craniotomy. And luckily, my surgeon was kind enough to actually let me see my MRI, because a lot of doctors don't show you this. Some of them are quite reluctant. And this MRI showed a literal hole in my skull, because it doesn't show soft tissue, an actual hole. So he was going to scoop out the diseased tissue and scrape it off my brain, which sounded terrifying. And I call this now my own personal zombie, because zombies eat brains. And that craniotomy was in early November. So September, October, 2 months of ruling out the simple things. And now we get to the biopsy. And the diseased tissue was sent to the labs, and I was sent home the following day to recover. And unfortunately, my body attacked the site of surgery, so my brain started to swell up. And because the site of surgery was at my right visual cortex, and it was inflamed, I became cortically blind on my left side, in my left eye. cortically because it has to do with your brain. And it was painful, very painful. You wouldn't think so, but I kept smashing into doorways, bumping into things. I had bruises all over the left side of my body. I lost a couple of nails from smashing into things. But it was also funny. Let's not forget that there is humor in this world, because sometimes I'd accidentally goose people when I was in line at the store because I couldn't see them when they were not in my line of vision. They had to be in my right side. So I got a lot of angry glares and a lot of good belly laughs, bellowing belly laughs from my friends. So there's a bunch of unintended pain and fear, as well as quite a bit of unintended comedy. But meanwhile, they were trying to find out what was wrong with me. The various pathological conditions were ruled out, including cancer, as they examined the diseased tissue. But there was a time where they thought I had a rare form of bone cancer, but that was ruled out. And aside from steroids, which I took in very high doses, I couldn't be treated because no one knew what was wrong with me. And the wrong treatment could worsen my condition. And all the MRIs I took as we were waiting for the results of the biopsy kept showing that my condition was worsening, my brain kept swelling up, and the bone around my jaw and orbital maxillary regions were deteriorating. So you'll notice that sometimes I'm not pronouncing my words correctly. Some of my words are mushy. It's because I have a jaw problem. And finally, though, after 6 weeks, so that's from early November, so that's all of November, part of December, almost 2 months, 4 months total, I think, from the onset of the noticeable symptoms to diagnosis, I got the call that they knew. Now I know that this was fast, but back then I thought it was taking forever. A lot of people, as you will hear, and as some of you probably already know, it doesn't take that fast. So anyway, I was directed to come to the hospital immediately for treatment, where I had my first round of rituximab. And yes, I had an allergic reaction. Yes, it was terrifying. I am not going to lie, but they let me recover. They reintroduced the chemical more slowly with a lot of Benadryl and more steroids. And I made it through the treatment. And I can tell you, I noticed immediate improvement. One, I could see. Two, I felt better. And I kind of feel like the brain involvement made me lucky because there was such a sense of urgency to find out what was wrong with me. So treatment consisted of 2 rounds of rituximab infusions, and I stayed on prednisone for a while. And rituximab frequency followed the standard, 2 rounds twice a year. Then I was weaned off prednisone and I was put on a regimen of 800 milligrams twice a day of Cellcept, which some people may know as mycophenolate mofetil, and that replaced rituximab. And I was on it for several years for maintenance. And along with blood tests and regular visits with my rheumatologist, I got quarterly MRIs. And then as I got better, they reduced it to twice a year, and then it was just once a year. And now I think it's just if I show signs of relapse. Meanwhile, between 2018 and 2023, I had chronic pain in my jaw for which there was no relief because I am allergic to standard prescription pain medications. And that pain began the moment I awoke from surgery. So after 5 years of pain, I got an MRI just of this area where they showed the marked deterioration of bone around this temporal mandibular joint, like pretty much all of it. It's all flat now. And I have a TMJ related disorder along with this fibrous mass along my jaw. And even though nothing could be done for the damage of my jaw, I did get a cortisone shot, and that immediate improvement, I don't feel pain right now. And it's been a year. And I was also tracking every little thing in my life so I could communicate more easily with my medical team about what was going on. And this helped quickly identify my last relapse. I had headaches, deep fatigue, something you'll never understand unless you have it, vertigo, visual impairment, pain and swelling all around here. So they took me off the Cellcept, put me back on rituximab, and immediately, again, so much better. And I need to point out here, not everyone has such a positive response or such a quick response to rituximab like I did. And today I sit before you feeling great. I've been discussing ongoing maintenance to keep the disease at bay with my doctor, and this experience has been enlightening. It underscored the power of connection and community in facing rare diseases like IgG4-RD. And that's why I've teamed up with Masa on this podcast and why I'm deeply involved with our patient community, because when we come together, share our stories, support one another, we're not just patients. We're a resilient force armed with hope and driven by science. And I am so appreciative and grateful to Dr. Stone, whose research and dedication made my diagnosis and treatment possible. I was lucky to meet him in November 2022 at the launch of IgG Forward. That's the event where I met Masa. Fate was that night. And most importantly, I am eternally appreciative and grateful for the team of doctors who worked together and with me to find a diagnosis, treat it, follow me medically, and manage any symptoms of relapse. And especially my GP, my general practitioner, who is an amazing patient advocate. And I wake up with thanks for them every day. Thanks to pioneers like Dr. Stone and my incredible medical team, I've not only gotten diagnosed early, managed this disease, but I've also found a way to give back. I'm helping others navigate their journeys with strength and knowledge. And despite the physical and emotional challenges, my experiences added more fuel to a commitment to support others, a desire to foster a supportive network, and to advocate for my fellow patients. And what we are doing comes from our perspective and experience. It is by patients. It is for patients and allies. And I hope that patients can be heartened by what we have to share. The caregivers can have a greater understanding of what patients go through, especially when we're cranky or out of energy, and that doctors can approach us with curiosity, empathy, and compassion for the psychological and physical plight of patients. And with that, I am going to unpin myself and hand it over to Masa.
Thank you, Alex. Wow. It's funny because every time I know I hear your story again and again, like, because we talk a lot with each other and with others, but every time that you say it, I catch something that I probably didn't before. And that's just amazing. So the importance of social talking, just speaking on everything and our experiences is such a game changer. So like Alex said, our stories are all a little bit different. So, my story really kind of started at birth, but it went undiagnosed for about 31 years. And how it all started to get really bad, because if I want to go all the way back to the beginning, it would be ENT infections since birth, different severe dryness, cracked lips. I mean, if you touch my lips as a kid, if you just touch it like this, it would just burst out bleeding. I had a lot of ear pain as a kid, and now we know that it was just my parotid glands that were, massively inflamed. Little things throughout life. By 16, but by 9, I had bronchiolitis and some type of asthma, which they couldn't pick up on. So I was already started on inhalers, corticosteroid inhalers. And by age 15, 16 was when my Raynaud's and vasculitis kicked in simultaneously. And it's insane because everything was just so acute, everything would come and go except the bronchitis and bronchiolitis, which we got to the diagnosis of way down the line. It it really, I think around age 19 or 20 was when it had hit my gallbladder, and I was just constantly feeling nauseous and inflamed, and then I started throwing up every day. So it was like 6 years of me just continuously, projectile vomiting, throwing up, not feeling good. The amount of pain I had, I was always crouching, which caused a lot of other back issues that I am now still going through. But 6 years that went on, and I did every single test and scan in the book. And how this disease was acting was, it was inflaming and shrinking, and it did that for 6 years till it lost its function. And at that point, it was just poisoning me. There was bile spewing everywhere. I was constantly, it was horrible, horrible time. I mean, I can't tell you, 6 years every single day, throwing up multiple times a day. I was about to lose myself. Finally saw a general surgeon, did a final test in the book, function of gallbladder. And they found out that it had lost its function due to cholangitis. And so they took it out immediately. Now, cholangitis is one of, does sometimes fall under IgG4-RD. But again, even then, I didn't know. They didn't tell me about this. They took it out. I felt a little bit of relief and I went on. And even when I was a kid, I always had pain and fatigue. I always associated it with the term of being lazy. And I thought that every other kid around me was going through the same thing, like going to school, sitting at a desk. I thought everybody was in pain sitting at that desk. I thought everybody was fighting, not falling asleep. But actually, no, everybody else was kind of fine going through, these day-to-day things that were kind of challenges for me. I had insomnia since I was 6 years old. I mean, which child goes through insomnia at such an age? I had all these crazy tantrums that I didn't understand. Now coming to find out I have autonomic dysfunction from all these multiglandular involvement. But when I turned 31, my husband and I, we went on a cruise, right? And I already am living with a lot of conditions that are a part of me. And I was always known as the massa case at the doctors because they could never figure out what was wrong with me. Now, fast forward to this cruise. One night I turn around really fast and I walk into a column on a wall, and it was smack down here. The next day, everything swelled up. It triggered an ENT infection that lasted 3 to 4 months. And by the time I finally got a hold of it, it's 2022, March. I wake up and both eyes are just puffed shut. And the amount of pain and burning, and I thought, hey, maybe it's just an infection, right? So I go to the doctors and they can't figure it out. And they're like, it's not an infection. Your blood work is fine. But this persists and it gets really, really bad. My eyes are now completely shut. There's so much pain. Everything starts progressing. My pain and fatigue started progressing. My neck and back issues, which I have degenerative diseases, herniations, degenerative arthritis. I have all of that in both up and low. Stenosis, both, everything progressed at the same time. My coughing got so bad. I was, coughing up blood, and then my walking got affected and I had no idea what was going on. I finally went back to my primary. Now she's my rock because I call her anytime, she will answer. At this point, whatever I need, a blood test, anything, I will call her. She will order it immediately for me. A PET scan, she will order it for me. So she has been a lifesaver. And she was able to even give me the meds that I need based on what I was telling her until I found the right doctors to treat me. That's the most insane part. So I go bounce from doctor to doctor, surgeon to surgeon, and nobody wants to touch me when my blood work says I'm all fine, right? I'm also seronegative like Alex. And that means we don't carry the antibodies for these diseases that we have, for these disorders that we have. So yeah, finally, a great ophthalmologist, he says, I'll do your biopsy from your lacrimal gland because the CT scan was showing everything inflamed bilaterally. And he told me, I'm sure you've started looking into it, and what do you think it is? And me, I had started looking into it. Within a 5-minute search, I had found out that I have Mikulicz disease, right? And so I told them, I said, look for Mikulicz. It's going to be characterized by its IgG4 patterns. And I'm talking like I know what it is. I had no idea what it was. I was still thinking Sjogren's, right? So we go in and they do the biopsy. I have to deal with this freaking eye thing for 3 weeks, and results come out confirming Mikulicz. They found the IgG4 patterns, and now they're like, okay, well, we need more help in this. And so what we do is we go and find an ENT who does a lip biopsy, and then the lip biopsy comes back confirming and backing up Mikulicz. But at this point, all these doctors, they are continuously still thinking that Mikulicz is Sjogren's, right? And I'm at multiple research hospitals and sites doing these different biopsies and scans, and they still couldn't figure it out. So I finally find this godfather of Sjogren's doctor, who's my amazing doctor right now, Dr. Daniel J. Wallace. And, you know, I go to him, I take him multiple biopsies, I take him multiple scans. I mean, when I sent the email, it was 171 attachments of tests done within 6 months. And as soon as he sees the pathology reports, you know, he's like, even he was at first like, oh, maybe you don't have it. Then I said, but did you see my pathologies? He said, oh, you have IgG4 Rituxan. And as soon as he said that, I mean, it was the most amazing feeling that I could have had, you know, because I thought, oh my gosh, there's hope. You know, I don't have to feel like this ever. Within 2 months, we appealed it 5 times to insurance. You know, my neurologist came in, you know, we did a small fiber neuropathy test because I was very adamant on it. They did all the nerve conduction tests, and I told them, I said, no, I have neuropathy. I don't care if your test is not showing it. There is something called small fiber neuropathy. And they said, well, California doesn't offer a, you know, a place or a lab where they do such a thing, but I could always send it to Texas or Arizona. So I said, do it. I will pay out of pocket. And I've been paying out of pocket this whole time to just get it done, right? And everything I pushed for, every biopsy I pushed for confirmed exactly what I knew it would. Then it started this journey for me of, okay, now let me understand what's really going on with my body. And then I found these new organizations and our support groups online. And at this point, I've had 2 rounds of Rituxan. I'm feeling amazing, you know, but for me, I have to get it every 6 months, and I have to get the two 1,000 milligram doses 2 weeks apart. Um, it's different per patient, right? I have multi-organ involvement. I have my lacrimals, my parotids, my submandibular, salivary. I do have some in my nasal passages, and then I do have actually my neck and spine are involved, but they do get really, really well. They get a lot better during my remission moments, right? And I have about 3 or 4 weeks of remission before I start relapsing again, and then I get into it. So, um, but that's kind of the gist of it. It's an ongoing thing. It's not going to end for some of us. You know, we're treating our symptoms and our illnesses with different medications. I haven't been able to get off of steroids yet for 2 years. It's been, I haven't been able to get off of it. And a lot of research is actually showing that that 5 milligram to 0 taper is very crucial. It has to be done in a very slow manner. Last time we went 10, 5, 0, and I relapsed really hard. It hit my kidney, my liver, my pancreas. Everything inflames massively. I mean, I had an enlarged organ that within 5 weeks, it shrunk back to its original size. 6 centimeters within 5 weeks, just shrinking back. It's just the most insane things, right? I have, you know, fibrous tissue, fibroglandular tissue. I have fibroinflammatory tissue. We have, it's everywhere for me. So it makes my case really complicated. And that's why we just want to shine the light on these we want to really shine the light on these vastly different, you know, cases that are going on. And be I've come to notice that in researches, a lot of our more complex cases are not being represented, and that keeps leading to us not being diagnosed, and a lot of us continue to live with pain and no diagnosis and no treatments. It leads to organ damages, organ losses. It does sometimes become fatal. So we do have to worry about all these things. And it does cause fibrous and cancerous tumors, you know, so we have to always be on our tippy toes about this. You know, the day-to-day lives that we live, we have to consider a lot of our symptoms. So I would like to end my journey on this note. And because down the line, we're gonna speak more about, you know, different topics when we discuss it. And through those discussions, we're gonna probably cover more about our journey that we didn't really get into detail right now. And so I'll just end it at my journey there. And I wanna get into one way that we really deal with our pain and with our fatigue, and how we structure, like make a structure for our day based on the amount of energy and, you know, pain that we have. So this is called the spoon theory, and I'm going to switch it over to Alex and let her, you know, describe the spoon theory, which I already knew about it when I met Alex, but it's always amazing when you meet another spoonie, as we call each other. So Alex, let's have you get in here and talk about that.
Thanks. Yeah, I have to say too, likewise, Masa, every time I hear your story, I learn more. One thing I heard is that also for people in different communities, we call the regular doctor we go to different things. Like I call mine my GP, my general practitioner. Masa calls hers her primary, and you may call yours something else, but they're all the same thing. And they do tend to be the I don't want to say kingpin, but like the pin around which swivel all the other doctors. So you really want to make sure that they are on your side, that they're advocating for you, so that they are compiling all this information from other specialists and directing you to the right specialists and staying involved with everything as part of your medical team. And that's another thing too, is right now, current treatment for IgG4-RD is off market. And what does that mean? It means that the medicines that we take are approved for other diseases, but not yet for our disease. And luckily, thanks, of course, it was, I think, Dr. Stone and a bunch of other doctors' efforts to give it a code that Masa talked about last time, and that research can be made, done specifically for drugs for IgG4-RD. There's another one whose name escapes me. I keep calling it Beelzebub, but it's something else. It's with a Z in it. And then,
Obexelimab. That's
yes.
one.
What she said. So, so okay, so I've made that part clear-ish, or muddied the waters on that one, but we will get clarity as we have people come on. Another thing too, Masa and I are willing to discuss our disease, again, talking about insurance companies and the state of medical care in the US, for good or for ill, makes a lot of us very reluctant to talk about our medical conditions. So those of us who can do, and we can, and we will, and we do. And with that, I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you a bit about spoon theory. Speaking of can and do, spoon theory, I'm going to go really roughly here. You can Google it. Spoon, like the kind you eat your ice cream with, and theory. And it was brought up by this woman who had a chronic condition that made her very fatigued. And a friend of hers was asking her to explain what is it like to have this condition. And so the story goes, she was in this diner, and she just grabbed a bunch of spoons that were available from empty tables around, and there were like 12 spoons. And she just said, imagine each of these as being a unit of energy that you have for the whole day. And that's what you've got, and no more. So, and sometimes less, depending what your previous day might have done. And then let's say just getting up out of bed sometimes can take 1 spoon, okay? Or showering and brushing your teeth, another 1 or 2 spoons. Like I can tell you, if you've ever been to a science museum and you've weighed yourself, like what's your weight on another planet? Having deep fatigue is like being on Jupiter. You could barely lift your feet off. You're like 1,000,000 pounds. You can barely scrape yourself out of bed. So 1 or 2 spoons just to get out of bed. And then a couple more spoons to brush your teeth, wash your face, possibly prepare breakfast if you don't have a caregiver, if you eat breakfast. And then, everything throughout the course of the day, having a conversation with just a person, or a pet even, feeding your pets, that could take energy. So throughout the day, you are running out of spoons, and sometimes you're out of spoons by 2 p.m. if you're lucky. Sometimes if you have a lot of energy, you've still got spoons at the end of the day, And so basically that's spoon theory. And a way to manage your energy is to look at your daily energy as a finite resource and allocating that energy to the priorities that you have, or understanding that energy is going somewhere, that unit of energy is going somewhere. So whatever other priority you have is just going to have to wait till tomorrow. A conversation that you need to have is going to have to wait till tomorrow or even next week. And personally, for myself, I deal with my spoon theory by when I schedule my day, I look at what I have, what times they need to happen, and then find out where is my downtime, where is my time for rest, where is my time to care for myself. Sometimes self-advocacy to me is self-care. Sometimes caring for others might be a form of self-care, like feeding my cats. But where do I have time to like basically rest? Where can I just like shut down and not have to like give energy to anything? I schedule that in so that then I will do all those other things based on what's left that's not taking care of myself. Other people might do it differently. They'll just start running out of spoons, kind of like taking money out of your wallet. But I'm a little bit more guarded.
Yeah. How I was introduced to it was that you wake up with 10 spoons every day. So use them wisely. You don't want to run out by 2 o'clock from all of your spoons, because then what ends up happening is you start borrowing tomorrow's spoons. And then when you start borrowing tomorrow's spoons, that's going to just maximize that recovery period that you're going to need when you've had such a mental and a physical stressful day, because mental, physical, and emotional stress really, really do affect us, right? And so, yeah. So sometimes I've noticed I did that one time and I borrowed almost all of my spoons from the next day. And what ended up happening was 3 days of me in bed until I could get back up and just reset, basically. It's different for us patients, and I understand a lot of us have to work multiple jobs. Like Alex over here, she's my trooper because she gives me inspiration every day. The amount of like pain, fatigue, and confusion that I have, I still can't imagine, because Alex actually, she had it in her brain. She said she had it in a very, very sensitive spot. And so kudos to you, Alex. Thank you so much for everything. She's just something magical, A lot of us are having to do this. I'm talking to a lot of patients. We are both talking to a lot of patients, and a lot of patients are losing their jobs, and then they have to start looking for jobs. We're not getting qualified for disabilities whilst we are having these crazy invisible disabilities. It's all internal, right? They're like, well, you look good and your blood's fine. So so nothing for
Yeah.
you, no help for you. So we end up being our own caregiver and our own advocate. And then we also have to fight our insurance companies, our doctors, and we have to just keep proving that we are disabled, which is insane. And
Oh, and it's not just insane. Trying to prove how sick you are actually makes you more sick. I'm just going to go there and say that
yeah,
because you're like, this is who and what I am.
manifesting it.
It's like I am a sick person. It's like this ridiculous. I'm getting better. I want to not be sick. I want help, and it's not fair to have to sit there and f- fight to defend your sickness when what you really
Yep,
want is to defend your health. And so this is why we do
right.
appeal to caregivers and to doctors, especially doctors, to listen to us. And this, I appeal to patients to track everything, quantify your life, whatever it takes, track it. I was like a neurotic about tracking for a while. I was like, all I did was track, because that's all I had the
We
energy
have to.
to do. Yeah, I really couldn't do anything else anyway. But but doctors speak data, so that's important. And then caregivers. So, our caregivers, it's hard for patients to know what caregivers are going through when they're caring for us, especially when we get cranky or fatigued or hungry or whatever it is, when we have needs, we're unable to speak. Like when I was recovering from the stuff going on and surgery, I had a really hard time communicating with people, but luckily one of my sisters came and helped me manage communication, helped me manage being really sensitive, and basically, just like when I had to go to physical therapy with my broken foot many years ago, I basically had to relearn how to walk. With her, I relearned how to talk and how to be a decent human being again, because I would be just like, shut up, I'm done. I couldn't say I'm out of spoons. I was just, shut up, I'm done. And just turn around and walk off.
That's that autonomic dysfunction happening. It's like a neuralgia triggering thing that's going on. I go through that too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so caregivers, please be patient with us. And then for us patients, be careful, what is it called? Be understand
Kind.
caregivers, you know, they have it rough too, in a totally different way. And
They really do.
everyone's
It's
operating from a place of love. So we got to remember that too.
That's very true. I have this issue a lot because a lot of times what made me advocate for myself was that nobody else could actually say what was going on with me other than myself. And at the same time, I was going through, like you said, the TMJ and the jaw tremors, and I was getting partially locked jaws in my flares, so I could barely even,
Yeah.
bring out my speech, with that brain fog and your mind just going blank all the time. So, yeah, that these parts of it is a lot we're dealing with. So we can explain these things, but our caregivers, if they don't really know the extent of what you're feeling, then they can't really verbalize it as much. So that's why I always want us to be a bit more patient and kind to our caregivers. But at the same time, I want all of us to also get a little pep in our step as the patient and ask for what you need and push for what you feel like is going on with you. A lot of times your gut is right. It's telling you what your body is feeling. Just listen to your body. It takes practice, but this is one of the self-care things that Alex even brought up. We'll definitely get more into all of these soon. I know we went a little bit over again.
That's okay. And what the next time next, our next podcast or episode is going to be when Masa will be talking about some topics at the symposium that she totally gave us a teaser last time. So next time I'm going to kind of interview Masa about all of that. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming in. Remember, please to like, share, subscribe, push the little reminder button so you know when we come live or not live. We're not doing this live except on special occasions. That's
Yeah.
way technical and
It's 4 o'clock.
yeah. Oh my gosh, it's 4 o'clock.
And that's how she keeps up with everything, actually.
Yeah, I need something to tell me the time. You know, I don't have a grandfather clock. I have this
A robot.
Yeah. So
Like a male version of Siri, just 4
yeah.
o'clock.
I was kind of thinking of Lurch from the Addams Family. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah. So
That's funny.
okay. So
Yeah.
next
Well,
time.
thank you all.
All right. We love you.
Let's
Bye-bye.
do it. Love you all. Bye.
Oh.